Welcome back and happy Tuesday. And oh boy, do I have an incredible guest for you today. I know I say that often, but there are levels to this, and wait until you meet this powerhouse who I'm about to introduce you to. This week, we're going to be talking about the role of regulation in the future of fintech. And with that, thinking about regulation, there are only a handful of people that I am dying to speak to about this topic. And one of them happens to be Ms. Jelena McWilliams, who is chairman of the FDIC. Jelena, my dear, so lovely seeing your face.
It's always wonderful to see you, Scarlett, the queen of fintech.
Oh, not even, but I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, without further ado, I know we have and we can talk about this for hours, but let's get to it. We want to keep this short and succinct. 3 questions, Jelena's brain. What role do you see regulation playing in the future of fintech in the United States?
It's a great question, and frankly, a question that regulators need to spend more time thinking about. And here's why. I have had during my tenure at the FDIC and before that, when I was a lawyer in Silicon Valley, I have had an opportunity to work with incredible companies, with companies that are changing people's lives every day, from how we use objects and things to how we think about the future to improving everything from how we cook to how we talk on the phone and how we socialize. And one of the things that I always struggled with when I was on the outside of being a regulator and looking at regulatory world as a lawyer was how can we make sure that our system grows, our regulatory system grows with this development in innovation and fintechs and whatever else technology can offer in a way that actually we get a compounded interest on the investment of these innovators into the system. And what I've encountered in Washington, D.C., since I became the regulator, is a lot of apprehension about what's new, and anything that's new is innately risky because we don't understand the models and we don't understand how they work, and we certainly don't understand what can come out of them in the long run. So I think regulators need to look at innovation more sympathetically, not because it's the right thing to do, which it is, but because frankly, innovation can help in many ways improve the way regulators do our jobs, as well as improve how our regulated entities do their jobs, serve the customers, and comply with our regulations. So instead of looking at it as anything new is potentially dangerous and risky, I think we need to look at things in innovation and fintechs more from a perspective of how can we harness the possibilities, how can we harness the technology for the greater good, and then be open to that and be agile in our execution and our approach to regulations.
So many great moments that just came out of that. So great, in fact, that my light went off when you went hardest tech for greater good. My light was like, that's right. Let's go write a book about it. Um,
I'm sure you will deliver next week.
Something like that. Who knows? Okay, but that, I mean, and it was also interesting to talk about the idea of, having, regulators having innovation or, more sympathy around innovation. It's a really interesting concept because so easy we go to the tech side of it, but we kind of forget about the psychological component of what this means and why there may be hesitation. So when you think about, you've spent a lot of time looking at fintech in your seat, your team spends a lot of time. What is the most exciting trend? If we had to go to the trend thing, what's the most exciting thing that you're seeing across the space right now that gets your blood pumping in a good way?
So a lot of things. I don't think 10 minutes is enough to really talk about it fully, but I'll just touch upon a few things that I'm just really excited about. And I think there's so much opportunity here that regulators and innovators should be cognizant of and work together to implement. Number one is I think that we are at the precipice of just building a whole new infrastructure into how we deliver information, whether it's Web3, blockchain, or any combination of those things. And I think there is a lot of potential here to improve our lives in the ways that have either been improved before, but not to the same extent, or in the ways that we function in the future. And so that's, I would say, number one is kind of the possibilities of blockchain and what some of these financial technology companies can do in that space, from how we think about the internet and the web to how people deliver products and services to others. I would say number two is really a lot of opportunity in the consumer space. And what I mean by that is that some of these fintechs have been able to provide incredible amount of credit, responsible credit in many cases, to consumers that previously used to be unbankable. And I quite often talk about my story of having come to the United States with $500 30 years ago, and not being able to get a credit card. I had to go through the process of getting a secured credit card and, building my credit up, et cetera. I was credit invisible back then. I was a perfect ninja, no income, no job, no assets, and certainly no credit history in the United States, which made me ineligible for good credit. Now, some of these companies are able to use their algorithms and predict consumer behavior based on alternative data. They're implementing machine learning and artificial intelligence, and they're able to offer credit to people like me 30 years ago and offer good 720 plus credit score credit, about 1 or 2 tiers down, going in some cases into the 500s credit scores and offering good credit. And I think there is an opportunity there to work with the regulators, and regulators, frankly, to be more open-minded, to see how can we make sure that that credit is being offered responsibly, so that the broader array of public, especially newcomers to this country, immigrants, people who are traditionally have not been represented in the financial system, minority communities, et cetera, can get good credit. And I would say the third thing that really excites me about this space is kind of about what the future of our lives will be as a combination of the prior two, right? What is Web3 going to bring to our lives that's different? It took a while to develop an iPhone and other smartphones, which basically became computers, and they kind of replaced your desktop computer for many people. Even the poorest people in America actually have a cell phone with data plans because that's their connection to the world. And so I'm just curious how this combination of blockchain and what innovators are doing in the fintech space, consumer facing, is going to change our lives. And I don't even profess to know where we're going with all of that, but I'm certainly excited about the possibilities and seeing how can our lives be even better and how the United States can remain the preeminent financial system in the world.
Oh my goodness, a lot to unpack there. You covered everything from the technology to the societal impact. Lots Web3, we brought it all. And certainly when you think about the behavioral shift of people, you talked about in the US how even the lower parts from an economic standpoint have cell phones. I mean, we've seen around the world where there are populations that completely skipped over computers and went directly to cell phones, and they use that as you said, their primary means, but that's how they make their income. There's examples in like Indonesia where this woman-led fintech, one of the big things in that country is about bartering through tickets, and she does it all from her phone, and she empowers all of the women to do it through their phone, where they make income just from that. So it's kind of interesting. Now, obviously, you just alluded to many interesting things that are coming in this space. Some of them already started, some of them are coming and going to be built on that. What do you see? It's a little bit of a loaded question given your role, but what do you see as some of the impediments for this stuff, innovation, the future of fintech? What are some of the impediments for it moving forward? So really, what do we need, or maybe on the other side, what do we need to change to get this going at scale more quickly than it is right now?
So it is a loaded question, but I'm currently in Washington, D.C., and everything is loaded. So shoot. Here's where I think some of the obstacles are, and they're big obstacles, but they're not insurmountable. And that's really what I want people to focus on. The big question for us is, how can we enable this level of innovation responsibly? I use this word responsibly very carefully. Why? Because the United States, many of our institutions, regulated entities, businesses, they're bogged down by legacy systems. And changing from the legacy system to something new, inevitably there are going to be hiccups, right, in the system as that transition occurs. There's also a question from the regulatory perspective: how far are regulators willing to go to enable innovation to prosper, or are they going to be completely unwilling to do so and look at everything new and entrepreneurial in this space as innately dangerous? Which there's always risk. Anytime you do something new, there's risk in the system, and of course that risk can be really high, or that risk can be managed. And sometimes it can be high and managed. And so what we want to come to is this equilibrium where we're willing to admit risk in the system and know how to appropriately both regulate it from the regulatory perspective and manage it from the company side. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest obstacle to innovation. How well can we transition to accepting some risk in the system, managing it appropriately from the entrepreneurs and founders side, and then regulating it appropriately from the regulatory side in Washington, D.C. and at the state level, where it doesn't inhibit growth. You mentioned, women in Indonesia making income through this fintech. The truth of the matter is that there's so much good that can be done by allowing innovation and entrepreneurship to come through our regulatory system, legitimizing some of these technologies and services and products that can truly change the way we look at things. And when we say that, we take a lot of things in the United States for granted because we're a developed country. But for countries that are not developed, for countries that have no opportunity to give to women to produce income and be self-sustained, this is a truly a revolutionary time. And we, I think, owe it as regulators and as innovators, we owe it to the world and the future of our children to frankly be open-minded about how we look at innovation, to accept risk in the system and manage it appropriately, because otherwise we're going to be shortchanging ourselves in the long run.
You said that so elegantly and just hit home, because it's not just about our own preconceived fears, excited things, but it's about the impact that we're leaving on the generations after that. And there is still so much potential for not only in this country, but globally to really help move the needle and help to bank the underbanked and unbanked. And people forget that there's still good portions of the population in the US that are a part of that demographic. So Jelena, as always, love every conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time, my dear. And for all of you, until next week.
It's been a great pleasure, Scarlett. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.